Please welcome First Board of Directors Co-Chair, Mr. Kelly Ortberg, and First Student, Sarah Fogwell.
Well, good morning, good evening. It's not good morning. I just got back from China, so it feels like good morning. Good evening, and welcome to the first annual Showcase Celebration, St. Louis style. On behalf of the First Board of Directors, thank you for your incredibly generous support of First.
Tonight, we celebrate you. It's your passion, your wisdom, and your focus that has created the culture-changing community known as First.
We know many of the world's communities are divided, but tonight we're celebrating what unites us all. The First community is wonderfully diverse and incredibly inclusive. This year, 50,000 teams hailed from 86 different countries and attended over 2,700 events. $140,000 volunteers of all races, creeds, genders, and political parties collectively worked for 16 million volunteer hours to make First happen.
But with all of its diversity, the First community is united in its mission to change our culture, transforming it into not one that honors and respects science, technology, engineering, and math, but also celebrates gracious professionals who serve society. Your actions unite people for a cause. Because of you, the actions of everyone in this room, we have unity in purpose and action. Tonight, we celebrate the unity of our First community.
Tonight, we celebrate all of you and your commitment to the mission that unites us. And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you the president of First, Mr. Don Bosey. Don.
Good evening. I'm honored to have the opportunity to work with each of you and the amazing First community. As I travel around the world and attend just a small fraction of the 2,700 First events held this season, I'm continuously impressed with First students. When I meet them and see these kids and their commitment to excellence and to community, it's an affirmation that First is not only inspiring future innovators, but also inspiring the next generation of thoughtful world leaders. But each year, it's the determination and perseverance of people like you First's ardent friends and supporters that impressed me the most. Thank you. First has over a 25-year track record showcasing the value of cooperation. World-class companies collaborate to bring their resources, expertise, employee volunteers, and most advanced technologies to FIRST students. While companies may compete in the business world, they are united in the FIRST community in their commitment to prepare our students to become tomorrow's innovators and leaders. Your leadership in being the unifying force of FIRST is amazing. Thank you all. This weekend and last weekend in Houston marked the culmination of another fantastic FIRST season, characterized once again by double-digit percentage growth. This season, FIRST kids learned about the animal kingdom and its relationship with humans. They captured beacons and capped vortices with great velocity, and they prepared for long-distance airship races in FIRST Steamworks. Colleges and universities validate the effectiveness of our programs, providing over $50 million worth of scholarships this year. This is powerful affirmation that FIRST works. Lastly, thank you to St. Louis and to each of you for supporting our inaugural year of dual championships. With your incredible support, we are delighted to enable more young people to experience the truly life-changing excitement of a FIRST championship. Thank you. And we hope that you'll all be able to join us for the Festival of Champions, taking place in the birthplace of FIRST, Manchester, New Hampshire, this July. Thank you all, and enjoy your dinner.
Please welcome FIRST Distinguished Advisor and Co-Chair of the Executive Advisory Board, your Master of Ceremonies, Dr. Woody Flowers.
Good evening. Please read this proverb. Thank you for not waiting. You have not waited very effectively. You have not waited with exactly the right emphasis. Your enlightened self-interest is being great for young people. Thank you for helping to provide things kids badly need. For a long time, we've known that our education systems are not perfect. Too often, as Dean so wisely points out, schools do not inspire students. I believe too much of education is being choked to death on a failed effort to train. Training is about learning codified information. It is the commodity part. Education is the more subtle and complex part. It is the part that conveys comparative advantage. The good news is that digital technologies are making training more accessible to everyone. After a few decades of stumbles, we're getting better at using technology to train. What I call true education is still much more likely to happen through human-to-human interaction. Apprenticeships, coaching, mentorship. With your help, FIRST is moving things in the right direction. In FIRST, kids experience true education. They do things that change the way they see themselves. Often they must train themselves or one another so that they have the knowledge to do, but it is the doing that enables deep learning and the evolution of rational self-esteem. From personal experience, rather than from a grade, they know they can be creative, solve a very hard problem, lead others, learn new skills, acquire new knowledge. They have lived some of the chapters of Angela Duckworth's book on grit. They understand at a visceral level Carol Dweck's book, Mindset. They have what she calls open mindset, an attitude that strongly correlates with a life of success. They've collided with Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow. They know what happens when their fast brain runs on automatic. They know that reason demands that they downshift into slow brain. In short, they are experiencing what many modern scientists are learning, how brains can be more effective. They have participated in a complex interdisciplinary design team. They know that wishful thinking will not overpower the laws of the universe. They have seen thousands of solutions to the same problem, which is a really rare educational experience. With the whole FIRST community, they have come to deeply understand what is true about this season's challenge in each FIRST program. They therefore have learned that truth is related to something more than an eloquent speech from an attractive person. They know that being persuasive does not make you right, nor does being right make you persuasive. So I argue that you have helped millions of young people get a big leg up on having a meaningful life because you have helped create a community that celebrates seeking truth and its application for good. But rants about epistemology and metacognition are not persuasive. What is persuasive are examples of how your reluctance to just wait has created unity in our community. Tonight, we invite you to reflect on FIRST's ability to fit in any existing community, to grow with those communities, and catalyze unification across diverse communities. Unity is fundamental to FIRST. It is an anchor for the very large and very effective FIRST community. Please watch and listen.
FIRST gave us our first world championship here in Cleveland. I mean, we all know about the Cavs, but we were the first ones. Team 120 brought home that championship.
I've never had that opportunity of being in the neighborhood that's completely safe. But now working back with our students, which are all from urban areas, all from underprivileged schools, it just gives me that much more advantage over a mentor that may come in from an area where they never had to deal with that.
These kids, they find out that this is a safe place. They can act like normal people here. And to watch their self-confidence grow, their ability to understand the relatively advanced concepts that we have to deal with here. As a matter of course, from their freshman year to their senior year in high school is absolutely amazing.
Because of FIRST and my involvement with the East Tech 120 team, it saved my life. Some of the kids that was on this team, they don't come from the greatest households. And so to have a opportunity like this to be told that you can be anything you put your mind to and have a place of refuge after school where you got people who love and care about you to see you through, it's an amazing opportunity.
Being involved in FIRST has helped me grow as a person because it helped me with my communication skills, for one, helped me with my technical skills, and just being a person in general. I don't know where I would be without FIRST, honestly.
If you look at the current team and the championship we won last year in 2016, a lot of people are saying, you know, how's it possible that an inner city school team won that championship? You know, they don't have the resources we have. They're not trained the same way we're trained. But the most important thing is that these kids never thought about themselves not being able to do it. It was a matter of, well, what is it that we need to do to get there, and let's just do it.
Confetti went off, and I looked up, and it was tied, and I kind of cried a little because I thought we lost. But then I looked at it again, and it says victor, and I also cried a little because we won.
There are students who heretofore would probably never, ever consider pursuing not only STEM-related activities, but pursuing higher education. And so this is an avenue and a way for introducing them not only to these programs, but encouraging them to pursue positions and opportunities that will help elevate them out of their current economic situations.
I can honestly say I love FIRST. I love the experience that I gained from being on a team, and I love the experience going across the world to be able to work with other people. And this is something that I can take with me down the line throughout my life.
First, when I say FIRST saves lives, that should be like a new tagline. You just don't know how impactful this program is in schools that oftentimes don't have the funding to even support it. And so, FIRST saves lives.
Greetings, I'm George Bilikoski from FIRST Robotics Team 120. From Team 1, thank you. From Team 120, Cleveland's team, thank you for FIRST. FIRST has succeeded where other programs have failed. FIRST works in all types of communities. Our urban team's success is not an isolated example. The FIRST community flourishes wherever it goes. It blooms wherever it is planted, uniting teams, schools, and communities. FIRST seems to have a magical recipe for breaking barriers and creating community. And that magic works with people from every background, with every level of experience, and in groups from every heritage.
Benoshi we can desort na we ne ken mot gego we ne se stot gego ki spege we ne se so ki stot gego we anche se tot.
After about half a dozen years of the Science Olympics, I always had in the back of my mind, well, maybe a robot team would be a good fit for us. And I thought it was going to be kind of like Lego, where you open your kit of parts and everything would be there. And we saw the frame, and like, how are we going to put together a whole robot to do Recycle Rush with these things? We ran into every problem that could possibly imagine.
There's no machine shop that's accessible in the area. A lot of the trades in terms of engineering and computer coding and those things are not present in this community or even on Manitoulin Island in a wide respect.
We didn't have any budget, and we needed more than a driving frame, so we went to the recycling dump.
Nobody really knew what we were doing until we came home with 3 rookie awards, and that's when they started paying attention.
I guess we proved we can punch above our weight, and we can just stick with the big dogs kind of thing.
Our little team of 5 with borrowed shirts with our robot built from the recycling dump managed to make it as Alliance captains. So to have that experience was phenomenal for the students. To wind up with the highest seeded rookie, and then to the Rookie Inspiration Award. And it was incredibly validating to the team and to the project and to the community. You know, the community has a lot of pride in its young people.
Here at Kamen, we don't have a word for robot because our language is really ancient. The first year, my grandma named our robot Biab Konamush, which means metal dog.
On the very last day of where we had to wrap everything up, we had to be done at a certain time. I think that's when our attitude and our spirits were most high, because you can feel the joy and the teamwork.
We're a small high school,
So essentially kids come in and they'll go either in the academic stream, applied stream, or the workplace stream. And especially in the classroom, these students do not intersect. They don't learn together. This is a course, it was an extracurricular and now it's a course that brings all of the different pathways of kids together, and it just shows that everybody has something valuable. There's no other program that brings together the diversities within our own high school than FIRST does. It's the one thing that any kid feels like they can be a part of.
Each child that wishes to be part of this team and is willing to commit to the work necessary to build a robot, they're welcomed. The community here is very proud of the students and their continued development of Biab Konemush.
These are cases of real unity within each team, within each school, with each community, and without borders. The First Tech Challenges also creates unity. It sits in an important slot in the spectrum of the FIRST opportunities. Kids 12 through 18, less kit-focused than FIRST Lego League, but more so than FIRST Robotics Competition. Teams of a few rather than a bunch. First Tech Challenge is one of our fastest growing programs, and it too creates community.
Good evening. I'm Erica Fessia from Qualcomm. At Qualcomm, we're inspired by First Tech Challenge students' innovative spirits, teamwork, and passion to create. They are empowered as inventors, which is at the core of who we are as a company at Qualcomm. They will be ready to tackle the biggest challenges. Our engineers and product teams have worked very closely with FIRST to reimagine, develop, and improve the First Tech Challenge control system. It hums with the latest mobile technologies. In the course of that work, we met a FIRST student whose personal community, his technical and social network, if you will, has rapidly expanded through FIRST. His name is Jordan Birkland. Jordan is an alumnus of First Tech Challenge Team 3550, Beta, in West Des Moines, Iowa. He was interning at FIRST headquarters in Manchester, New Hampshire when we met. Our team was blown away by his knowledge of our control system and the First Tech Challenge program. We hired him as one of our first interns last summer. Jordan worked testing our drones. He so impressed us during his internship that Qualcomm awarded him a scholarship established especially for interns with extraordinary technical talent.
Good evening. I am Emily Birkland. Jordan is my son. First brought community to him in many ways. Starting with First Lego League, Jordan had many opportunities to learn and develop that he otherwise would have missed. The First community was not only open, it was inviting, and it was full of unlimited potential. That is why I'm still immersed in First, long after Jordan went off to college. Like all senior mentors, I love to connect students to First opportunities like those my son had. And as a parent, I love the values of the First community. I have seen how First accelerates the development of individual students with its hands-on experiential programs. Schools don't always do that. Maybe First will pave the way. At one point, while working overtime on the First Tech Challenge robot, I remember Jordan telling me, "Mom, school is getting in the way of my education. In fairness, it's hard for schools to compete. The excitement Jordan experienced when his team competed remotely in the Australia First Tech Challenge Championships is tough to beat. In this case, they shipped a robot to Sydney, Australia, and in real time, remotely drove the robot from Iowa. Talk about expanding your community. I want to thank the FIRST community for the gift of the teamwork, problem solving, and communication skills it has given my son and so many other students like him.
Jordan would be here tonight, but the FIRST community helped him open another door. Jordan is a junior at Worcester Polytechnic Institute, one of the really smart 200 colleges and universities that are part of the FIRST Scholarship Program. Yes. This semester, he is in Copenhagen working on his robotics engineering and computer science degree. The FIRST community is vast, diverse, and inclusive. It unites all of its members in a common goal of inspiring interest in and recognition for much more than just STEM. FIRST ignites kids' interest in their own potential, inspired, empathetic, and STEM-enabled. Qualcomm is excited to be in the FIRST community. Through FIRST, Qualcomm meets many great people like Jordan and his mother, who we can bring into the Qualcomm community. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica, Emily. Communities finding communities is another example of the magic of FIRST. FIRST at times acts like a matchmaker. Once in a while, we get really lucky. FIRST found Lego, and Lego found FIRST. That unity has created tens of thousands of other unities. Kids working on well-structured robot design problems and on research to apply technology to community needs, all across all kinds of boundaries. That's the right mix, and Lego is being a wonderful partner in inspiring kids that in turn inspire us. Earlier in the season, the LA Times caught up with a remarkable young woman who wanted to share the skills she acquired in FIRST Lego League with her community.
Sayed. I'm 16 years old. I'm a junior in high school, and I am the founder of the nation's first all-girls, all-Muslim robotics scholarship program. What we do in FemSTEM is we are attempting to create a new generation of Muslim girls who can embrace STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, and develop girls who have an interest in STEM and can pursue STEM careers by teaching them robotics here, free of cost. We are currently in our first season. This is our first year of FemSTEM. I founded it this summer, and I gave out applications to girls in the community, girls aged 10 to 14. We had donors on GoFundMe who are all from the Muslim community pay for these girls to have resources to learn robotics and then to develop the skills that would allow them to compete in robotics competitions. Currently, we are in our second part of the season in which we are preparing for FIRST Lego League's regional tournament that they will go to in the beginning of November. They have learned how to build robots, how to do basic programming, and now they are developing on those skills so that they can be used at competition.
Xenia's goal in getting the girls in her community to experience FIRST Lego League and be tech literate and passionate about STEM met with incredible success. Xenia's team went on to win their qualifying tournament and head to the regional championship. Along the way, Xenia and her team showed other communities that the girls in their community were as enthusiastic and capable of science, technology, engineering, math as any competitor.
Going to a robotics competition, we are going to interact with people face to face, and they're gonna see us and they're gonna know that no, they're not anything like what's on the news. They're like real people, they talk, they communicate, and they're just like us.
I thought, don't get your hopes up or anything like that. They're a rookie team, you haven't been training them for that long, nothing, surprising or, crazy is gonna happen.
And then we're sitting there and they announce them as best overall team.
We'll be advancing to Saturday's tournament.
For Zania, FIRST Robotics was the perfect vehicle to achieve the goal of awakening Muslim girls to STEM and to break down barriers. For the FemSTEM team, the FIRST community has been a unifying force that has helped everyone realize that lots of communities share a passion for science and technology. Now, that's progress. Oh, if we adults could only listen to kids. Maybe we should listen to young kids, very young kids, like the ones in First Lego League Junior. That program is accessible and easy to start. It is so important for kids to get hooked on learning and thinking as young as possible. Thank goodness it's growing like crazy. First Lego League Junior grew at an astonishing 35% this season. Almost 40% of the participants were young girls.
LEGO Education and the LEGO Foundation are very proud of our First LEGO League Junior community. Did you know that everything you will ever learn in your life builds on your experience as a child? That is why LEGO Education and the LEGO Foundation, together with FIRST and other organizations, work to promote initiatives like First LEGO League Junior so that children have a playful learning experience. Play literally helps build our brains, because when children play, they learn skills for life, skills like problem solving, creativity, and collaboration. First LEGO League Junior is already in 41 countries around the world. Yeah. This year, as a result of a grant from LEGO Foundation, First LEGO League Junior communities were given a boost in South Africa, Mexico, and Ukraine. So tonight, I want to share with you the story of First LEGO League Junior community in Ukraine. We know that growing up in an unstable and fragile setting poses many risks to children and their families and can have an adverse effect on a child's development. In the midst of an unpredictable and fragile situation in Ukraine, an amazing woman, Oksana Stoyetska, along with team members like Tanya Sarjakovska, has created an organization that has facilitated explosive First LEGO League Junior growth, from no teams 2 years ago to 130 teams today. Oksana and her team organized teacher training sessions, events, volunteers, and a community. They got an amazing program off the ground in a record time. They did all of this and still do this because they believe that First LEGO League Junior gives everyone in their community hope for a better future.
Most coaches, they work on volunteer grounds. They stay at school after the lessons, they prepare excursions in their free time. And you know what? They love to do it. They love to do it because they see the sparkle in the children's eyes when they are preparing the topic of the season. They see how they start to feel in love with math and engineering while building Lego model, and how exciting they get while they are programming it.
First LEGO League Junior changes not only teachers and children, but everybody else who is around us. This program gives everybody the most important things which we Ukrainians have found over the past years. Belief on changing. Hope what we can have influence of something. Hope of being capable of great innovation. Hope of we see the better future.
So Oksana, the driving force behind the great success in Ukraine, is here with us tonight. So Oksana, could you please stand up? And on behalf of LEGO Education and the LEGO Foundation and the First LEGO League Junior teams in Ukraine, please accept our thanks, Oksana, for connecting the FIRST community with your community in Ukraine and enabling every student to succeed.
As you've just seen, one of the most powerful weapons in FIRST culture-changing community is our amazing mentors, the secret sauce that leads to magic.
This crowd really are the sergeants of FIRST. They know what's going on. They know how to relate to the kids. They do it every day, all year round.
The dedication required to be a FIRST mentor is something I've not seen in any other program that I've seen in high school.
We can change things. It's one student at a time, but that's okay. You know, we can do that because that one student can affect 3 others and we can just keep it growing.
There's kind of an acceptance of, you know, a kind of a family feeling. And I think that's what makes the feeling, you know, of being a mentor in FIRST special. You're not alone.
Every day, as a coach and as a teacher, I get those aha moments when a student emails or they tweet out what great things they're doing in this world, and I know that somewhere, somehow, I made a small difference, and they're making the big difference, and that's what it's all about.
You know, I used to say, if we get a kid for 3 years, we have a pretty positive impact on their life. Well, I've been doing this 21 years, and it's definitely been a positive impact on my life.
It's always the big picture. You see the student just light up, you know, when he runs his first circuit, or when he actually gets a motor and the wheels turn and the robot goes forward. You just see that. Or I just got a letter in the mail the other day. A student filled his lifetime dream. He's running a nuclear power plant, and he said it's because of FIRST. You get stuff like that, and it hooks you. And every year you say, yep, I'll do it again.
I mean, I've got kids who are now doctors and CEOs of major corporations, and some of them have gone into teaching, and some of them are in engineering, and they all care about their community. They're all trying to help make things better for everyone around them. And I can't ask for much more of my kids than to be good citizens. So, and yeah, I love my kids.
I am honored to be in the Woody Flowers Finalist Award winners community. Your community is our community, and together we are this wonderful thing called the FIRST community. And the center of the FIRST community is the word unity. FIRST unites people like no other program in the world. FIRST seems like goodness gravity, and it is goodness gravity that has been around for a long time. It exerts a strong pull that lasts forever.
Students of East Tech High School were all aglow at NASA Lewis Research Center. The Cleveland School's first robotics team held a practice session of their robot named the Scarabean Knight. The team is preparing for regional and national competition in Florida coming up in April.
It was 1994 where one of the engineers came up to me and said, there's a robotics program in New Hampshire, and would you like to have a team at East Tech? Well, I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what robotics tournament, East Tech. East Tech has been known for football, basketball. Kids on East 55th Street in the inner city, they were never known for math and science. And I thought, this is really going to be amazing. And then when people started hearing about the East Tech robotics team, they sort of just smiled and shook their head, and then that happened. Over the course of the next 6 weeks, 9 weeks, as we were putting this together, you could just see the pride in the school when this team was actually built a robot.
We figured out at a very early age that we could do more than what was expected from us, and that was all because of the FIRST team.
I think of
mentorship. I think of a sense of family, community. I think of hard work, and I think of exposure, and I think of just really opportunities and having really a platform to propel us into something else.
Like our team was predominantly African American, so that was one thing, kind of, let's say, like a culture shock, so to say, going down there with the other hundreds of teams, and it's like, oh, we're the only one that's predominantly African American. Wow, you know, we didn't feel offended or afraid. It was just like, wow, okay, we really kind of, you know, this is where we are. So that was a interesting situation. So.
I got reams and reams of film on how this team was so unique, and we were the first urban team, and the kids were so proud of that.
And I do remember going to Florida, we're in Disney World, and you start to interact with some of the other teams, and you see, it's like, hey, you know, at East Tech, this is our experience. And they were saying, you know, hey, I'm from wherever, and my experience was completely different. Or here's all the resources that we have. And it's like, oh, that would have been nice to have.
When you talk about Team 120, you have to really look at its first real big accomplishment, and that was back in 1999 when they won the National Chairman Award. And at that time, Team 120 was looked at as the miracle on East 55th, because that's where East Tech High School was.
It lifted everyone up and gave everyone in the school a sense of pride to see an inner city school for students who, many of whom were raised in poverty, to see that school recognized on television and in the newspapers for being an outstanding school and something positive.
Anticipation, waiting for the Chairman's Award, like the buzz within the group, because we're all together near the stage, you know, it's just gave you chills, you know. I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about it.
So he said it like, you know, and this year's Chairman's Award winner is Team 120. And then that's what we all just realized, that's us. We ran up there. I mean, we ran like we had just won like a soccer championship, like just like the Golden Globe. I mean, it was amazing.
Pretty soon scholarships started coming in. Going right down the line, all 15 of my seniors on that team got scholarships to major universities because they applied and they had the confidence to apply. And they knew what to do in applying because they weren't scared of it anymore.
The Cleveland East Tech students walked away with the prestigious Chairman's Award, making themselves and Cleveland very, very proud. Congratulations, all of them.
Absolutely. East Tech looking good nationwide. I like that. Me too.
I think I spent the rest of my life giving back, working with kids, trying to inspire. I won an award for community service from the Ohio State Bar Foundation. One of the big reasons why I still am involved in the community and do a lot of community service is because of all the people who did community service and were involved in the community when I was a kid growing up.
I don't think Mr. Supple knew the impact that he was making at the time. I think now when I think about it, when I talk to him and I call him on Thanksgiving, occasionally I remember a couple years ago before I had my son, I called him and I said, oh, how are you doing? And I think he was touched that I had reached back out to him. But something that I know and that my family knows, my mom knows, is I would not be the success that I am without the work that he did to invest in me, so I appreciate that.
When I say first saves lives, that should be like a new tagline. You just don't know how impactful this program is in schools that oftentimes don't have the funding to even support it. And so, first saves lives.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome first founder, Dean Kamen.
As I said a week ago in Houston, although this was even smoother, what I said to them was, you just saw an incredibly impactful, efficient, professionally well done presentation. That's over. Now you got me. I don't have some well-written notes, and most of, I think, what FIRST really represents, you've just seen. I'll first, I guess, start out, after I start begging for more, appropriately thank everybody in this room for what you have done. Some of you for the 25 years we've been at it. Some of you for much less than that. Some of you I'll thank for what you're going to do for us, starting tonight. I was told by Cece and Vince last week as they were preparing the show, every year they pick a different theme to bring out some different aspect of FIRST. And they said, Dean, we're really going to focus on community. I think they've demonstrated they've done that beautifully well. By the way, when you look at community, I couldn't help but think the presenting sponsor this year, and a company that's become bigger and bigger every year, is Qualcomm. And it's not just community, it's a really extraordinary quality community. So it's kind of Qualcomm unity. But anyway, thank you to Qualcomm for essentially being the host this evening. When Cece and Vince said, Dean, you know, just maybe give some people some updates on what you're trying to do going forward, I thought that was licensed to make a few more pleas for support. Community can either be, at the very, very, very lowest level, a small town, an individual person. And you don't have to go to some of these developing world environments or the Ukraine, as you saw, to see some communities right here in America that are in trouble. But community can also be at the truly global level. So since that is our theme for tonight, I'll share with you some of the problems I've been creating recently. I'll do it maybe by way of apologizing to Don, our president, and to Kelly Ortberg. I assume you're here somewhere, Kelly, our chairman. Maybe just at a slightly higher level, those of you that know me know that I'm chronically dissatisfied. I mean, my dad called me my whole life a human irritant. And he loved me. My mom's still a teacher, well, let's just say they told me that even as a kid, once I decided I was going to do something, they quickly learned that trying to dissuade me was a waste of time. I started FIRST 25 years ago with what I think some people thought was an audacious goal: change the culture of the country. 25 years ago, I was looking down the road, seeing what a lot of people are very concerned about now. 25 years ago, I wondered, how would we stay competitive? How would we continue to have a thriving economy? How would we have a place that would be safe? How would we manage to provide things like health care and education and security as we became a country that seemed to think leisure time and moving from being the conspicuous creators that the world had seen in this country for hundreds of years, you know, the Wright brothers, Edison, back to the beginning, we were innovators and risk takers. And in my lifetime as a kid, I watched us sort of transform from a country that was the conspicuous innovator to the conspicuous consumer. And I said to my mom, who's a teacher, it's not an education crisis like everybody said back then and many say today. It's a culture problem. We have turned our leisure time, we used to call baseball the national pastime. Sports is a national obsession. And entertainment as well is where all the role models come from. And in a free culture where you get what you celebrate, if that's what you celebrate, that's what you'll get the best of. And so I started first by saying all we got to do is take what we know works to create passion in kids, all kids, particularly women and minorities that don't see the alternatives. Let's just make STEM, what they now call STEM, something that seems fun, exciting, and accessible to kids by putting it in the format of sports and entertainment. Get the superstars of our sport from industry, put them in front of kids, and the problem will be solved. We did the first event, it worked, and I thought I could go on to solve some other problem besides changing the culture of the United States. It actually wasn't as easy as I thought. We've been at it 25 years. Most people think our growth has been extraordinary. You've heard some of the numbers that Don put out, 16 million hours of extraordinary people donated with a staff of slightly over 100 internally. That's leverage. But we're still not quite at the level of the Super Bowl, the World Series, the Academy Awards in the hearts and minds of kids in this country. But as I would say, as I did say, most people that support FIRST are extremely proud of where we've been, as am I, and sort of satisfied. Let's keep this growth going. I'm never satisfied. I'm told by my own group at DECA, I got about 500 engineers there now. Every time we solve a problem, we don't celebrate that problem solved. Let's go on to the nearly insurmountable pile of the next ones that we're going to do. I don't exactly win the popularity contest there either. But I've been working this year on a couple of things at Community that span, I think, the entire human experience. So since that's where we are, I'm going to enlighten you on a couple of new tasks I've thrown at Don and sort of surprised Kelly with. Unintentionally, I apologize, but don't worry, it's going to be fine. So they're all happy. Trust me, as all of you are. You're all overworked, underloved, there's too much to do, not enough resources. But for the community at the very, very lowest level, personal level, late last year, I, like all of you, probably saw this sequence over a matter of a few weeks, well, a couple of months, the shootings in this country, Baltimore, California, New Orleans, Ferguson, Dallas. And it started to become a pattern that you can't ignore. And one morning I get out of the shower, I'm watching the news, and I see the President of the United States in Dallas. And by the way, I don't care what your politics are, he made a few statements that weren't political. And I'm listening, and it was about the fifth time as all of you had seen one of these sad events being covered by news in this short sequence of time. But he made a statement, and he basically, there he was in Dallas with all these police lined up behind him, and it was after not just a shooting, but the community, in a reasonably long episode, was shooting at police, and police are shooting at people. This is America. And he's there the next day or two, and he says, if people in this country can't trust the police, and if the police don't know the people they're protecting, we've lost one of the fundamental pillars that makes the society work. And he pointed out that many cities don't have the luxury or whatever it is anymore, the culture of, and he called them cops, the cop on the beat that knows the people, and the people don't know their police. And as I watched that, I had one of those epiphanies, which when I have an epiphany, it means my 500 engineers have a new problem, or poor Don gets, I'm driving to work thinking, of course, for 25 years, I've tried to get industry. I've tried to get government. As you all know, if anything moves and talks, I try to suck it into first. And I realized that there's a whole piece about it. We have the teachers, we have the universities, we have the tech companies, we have government aid. But I said, who knows more, like you saw in some of these videos, about the schools and the communities that probably need first most? Why do we send all the kits to the superintendent or the principal? I had this great idea. Why don't we just go to all the police departments in the cities and towns that need first most, where the kids may not have a clue of what life is like for people that think. Why don't we give the kids to the police? And I'm, of course, thinking they probably don't write Java code. They probably are, like all of you, overworked and underloved. But wait a minute, we have we have everything we need. We just need them to direct these kids to get to the communities. And I thought there's a model for police trying to do that. They do community policing. When I was a kid, it was midnight basketball. Yeah, that's useful. Take the kids off the street, have them bounce the ball until they're 18. Then they have no other skill. They'll put them in jail a few months later. No, then they started the police athletic league. Yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll teach kids to box. That's what they need, a little more aggressive behavior. So by the time I get to work, I've decided we can solve another problem with FIRST. All we got to do is get to all the police departments that can help identify the places we need to go and grow. So I make a few calls, and I find out that there's this group called the IACP, the International Associations of Chiefs of Police. Their new president happens to be this year in New England. Call him up, have dinner with him, invite him up to our kickoff, introduce him to Don, and said, we have a new partner. There are 28,000 members in the IACP. That's not 28,000 police, that's 28,000 police chiefs. That covers a lot of places. And I figured if we could make some kind of deal by which they could feel comfortable that we can give them the technical support they need so that our mentors, we will bring them in as another pole in the tent. We will more quickly be able to get to maybe the schools in this country that need us most and the kids that need us most, so you won't see, like the ones you saw, they will not be outliers. They will become part of the mainstream of FIRST. Now, it's fair to say FIRST wasn't planning on having a new partner that was going to try to bring us 28,000 organizations, but Don, that's not my problem. I'm happy to say that's your problem now. But at that level, they got excited. In fact, the outgoing head of that organization and the incoming head couldn't be here today, but they were in Houston with us a few days ago, and they have every intention of becoming another major partner with FIRST over the next year, and I expect you'll see them next year. But wait, there's more. Again, well over a year ago, a germinating crazy idea grew out of conversations I've been having over the last few years with what arguably could be one of the most prominent living statesmen of the 20th and early 21st century, Shimon Peres. I'd gotten to know him probably more than 15 years ago. He had been sending a few teams, each year a few more teams, to the US to compete in regionals and then in championships here from Israel. Israel's a tiny little country. I think they're in many ways like this country probably was when it started up. They call it a startup nation. It's in a tough neighborhood. They need to be smart. Anyway, over the years, we finally started having whole regionals in Israel. And a few years ago, Peres, at one of their events, is giving one of his talks, and he's a very articulate guy. He had been a president, a prime minister. In his early days, he was a military leader in the birth of that country, won the Nobel Peace Prize. And he says to me, and he says to the people there, you know, we should stop teaching history in school. We don't learn from history how to stop doing stupid things. Every separate group just teaches their kids how to repeat the same self-destructive processes. And he's standing in front of all the people and he says, politics, he was 89 or 90 at the time, politics divides the world arbitrarily, countries, traditions, cultures. He said, politics divides the world. Technology can unite the world. We're living in the first generation, thanks to technologies like Qualcomm and others that have made it possible for everybody on this planet to take a little box, hit about 10 different keys, and talk to any one of a few billion people anywhere on the planet in real time. That should break down a lot of barriers. Kids could learn to work together, trust each other, communicate, be on the same team in a cooperation, fighting the same adversaries, which isn't each other. Global warming, water, food, security, healthcare, education, you name it. And his vision was, let's use FIRST as a tool of international cooperation, communication, international diplomacy. And so again, I had another one of those epiphanies. Well, it's been taken by then 20 some odd years, and we've been slowly growing more and more teams. But it was almost like an invitational tournament to come and see what we do here. The analogy I started using was, it's like the Olympics existed for 100 years, and they did shot putting, javelin throwing, swimming, running, things that the Greeks did. It's the Olympics. But the power of America in terms of entertainment and sport is so great that relatively recently, compared to Olympics, the NBA and this American sport of basketball became so globally pervasive that finally the International Olympic Committee said, we're going to do basketball as an Olympic sport. And they do. And it's true still today that if some major US basketball pro team went and competed, it probably wouldn't be very interesting. But the point was, the NBA, yeah, no question, basketball was American, started here, created here, became global because of what we do. But we don't have teams coming like we do at FIRST to participate in our championship from this country or that country, maybe many from this and a few from that. Now, once it became global, the International Olympics said, we'll make it a sport. And each country has one team. But the platform of, and the purpose of international communication cooperation, which was the premise of the International Olympics when it was founded in 1894, it would be a way to get people together. The fact is, for the 21st century, people need to get together in far more productive ways than those kinds of physical sports, whether it's javelin throwing or basketball. So my epiphany for the other end, not the cop on the beat, will solve the problem in little towns in America. No, we'll expand the Perez vision, and we will use FIRST as this international platform where boys, girls, it doesn't matter where, everybody on the globe will start out with these tools, and FIRST will become this first ever global network of positive kids working together with cooperation and gracious professionalism, and maybe breaking for the first time in human history the cycle of self-inflicted wounds that we do to each other. I forgot to tell Don and Kelly that I was just going to give this a whirl. And I thought I would very quietly, on the side, not distract them, the way we did with First Lego League. I went and got Kjeld Christensen 15 years ago, went over to Billund and said, come on over to our championship in Florida. And once he and I once it all started, worked, it got absorbed, and now we have First Lego League, and then we had First Take Challenge, and I thought we would do this other thing. So this year, while they're in their already, as I said, overworked, underloved environment of doing all the different programs we have and expanding nicely, we have these two things going on. I'm trying to get to an even more granular level at communities in this country that we weren't able to reach specifically and effectively by targeting them. So we'll bring the entire process of police to be partners with us and with their communities. And by the way, so far we've seen enormous positive response from all of them, and Don is nodding. I talked to Susie Matthew, who helped us come to this city 7 years ago. She thought tomorrow's your last day here, so I have to suck out of Susie the last bit of effort. Once I found out that we weren't going to get the former and current president of the IACP here, I said, well, they know the mayor, the police chief of St. Louis and of Ferguson. Let's get him here tonight. I did give her 2 hours notice. As she walked in here, she said, Dean, I'm really sorry I failed you. If you told me yesterday you wanted them, I could have delivered them. I'll take a rain check, Susie. Anyway, that was a long way of giving a public, I'll say an apology, but I'm really not apologizing. I'm just saying that you want to talk about unity. From the day we started this thing, I believed it's not about the robots. It never was about the robots. First is building a community. I thought it would be a little simpler, more mainstream, but I've now come to believe I wasn't thinking big enough when I said, we'll just change the culture of the country. I think we have to change the culture of the world. I think we've demonstrated leadership. But I think after 25 years, we haven't been as effective as we need to be in the schools in this country that need us most. So we're going to step that up big time for this coming year with some new partnerships that are going to make it really exciting at home. And I think we'll probably go through a few bumps, but we plan to build an international piece of FIRST that will be assimilated into it as the now 4 programs we have. And we will build a new kit and a new platform to make FIRST really a valuable piece of creating an international network that will help this whole world in what I think anybody that's conscious these days and seriously thinking understands that the world is now sort of, just look at the news, we're sort of in a race between one catastrophe or another and some technical solution. To get those technical solutions so that catastrophe doesn't win this race, we need really 2 things. We need way more technically competent people all over the world that know how to communicate and cooperate. And we need them not just to have those technical skills, those are just tools. They need to have the appropriate vision as to how to use them as part of a serious, positive global community. And as you've heard from these small examples of our only 50,000 schools, I think FIRST is delivering both of those things. They're delivering the skill sets, and I think they're delivering to the whole community, mostly because of you. These kids have the appropriate attitude, the appropriate understanding. I think they have the vision and the courage to do the right things. You can see how intensely they work with their robots on the field. And in most sports, it gets pretty ugly. Win at any cost. You watch the kids at a FIRST event helping each other in the pits. You watch them being polite in the hotels. They're an extraordinary group because of, frankly, the role models and the leadership of the self-selected people in this community that we're building, which is now becoming an international force. One last comment. We talked about the very small. Let's get the cop on the beat. The very large. The largest single sponsor we have this year, and I was saying, because I had the numbers from last year, largest single organization. It isn't Rockwell Collins, a lot of teams, or the Boeings, or the Lockheeds, or the General Motors, or Qualcomm. Many of these major companies committed to FIRST have 50 teams, 60 teams. Some of them have over 100. NASA, last year we gave them an award because they had 254. And they've been with us 20 some odd years. But collectively, the Department of Defense last year had 650 teams. I found out this afternoon, and you heard, I'd almost bring him up here now, you heard General Harensack from the United States Air Force. Well, and we have the Navy, we have the Army, another general. We got a lot of generals here. But I'm happy to tell you that I got my new data, and as of right now, the DoD of the United States is supporting over 900 teams. And the reason I think that's significant is we're talking about community, and everybody thinks that's warm and huggy. And then you think about who are our biggest supporters. Well, Little Israel has 1,100 teams. Perez had quite a military background. In this country, you see all these kids being supported by our military. I'm not naive. These guys do some pretty aggressive stuff. And around the world, we see people use military for keeps. But I think it's somewhat interesting that almost without exception, you talk to serious military people and they'll tell you, by the time you need a military solution, the cost in dollars, the cost in human capital is so high, and it's they that pay most of that. Most of the military people I know would like to see that as the last resort that never gets used. So the fact that we have every branch of our military, and there are militaries in pretty tough countries around the world, as the leading sponsors, and as we see most of the major tech companies that are part of our military support and supply chain as our major sponsors, says that besides getting the cops that are worrying about the local community violence, and they will soon be one of your biggest partners. And besides seeing this global network, many of which will be military, the fact that even here in this country, what's emerging is the obvious investment by our military community in FIRST. I think not just to make sure, and again, I'm not naive, I think the world ought to be a wonderful place where the lion sleeps with the lamb. I'd still like to be the lion. And I think our military demonstrates that every day, but their commitment, as well as the cops at this end and our global leaders at the other, they're all coming together at every level of community and saying we've got to find ways to work together, to give kids the right tools to create the careers and the quality of life and the economy of the future. And I think the FIRST community is becoming the model for doing that everywhere. So on the one hand, as I started, I'd really like to thank you for everything you've done. But yes, I've just told you we've got to do way more on a much larger scale with more groups, much faster. Get over it. We've got to do that. I think there's a lot counting on that. And if you doubt it, I would just ask you to do the mental experiment. If you don't have the kind of leadership of the groups we just talked about, the corporations, the universities, the military, the government, who's going to do this? Look at the news. Look at what's out there. I think the FIRST community and its supporters are the best shot we have of bringing a global community to a place that we're all going to be proud of and that the kids today will be able to take into the future in a positive way. So please, I will keep throwing new things out there. It's not just to torture you, that's just the fringe benefit. It's because, Don, we've got to move faster, because now that we know we have something that really, really works, and now that it's starting to come to scale, we have no alternative but to change the culture of this country and to change the culture and the future of the world. Help us do that, everybody, and thank you.